state the rules for this presentation. And your presentation must be limited to 10 minutes. You should not exceed over 10 minutes. And in case if you are going to share your PPT, you can. And if you face any technical errors, you can go with the reading process alone. No need to struggle with your technical stuffs. Okay. So in this technical session, we are having 4 presenters. So I'll read the order. So the first presenter is Kalavati, and the second one is Marin, and the third one is Rajakumar, and the last one is Vignesh Kumar. So I invite Kalavati to go with your presentation. So first introduce yourself, introduce your title, and then carry on with your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, my voice is audible?
Yeah, you're audible, ma'am. You're audible.
Shall I switch on the video or else off, ma'am?
It's up to you, ma'am. If you can go on with the video.
Okay. So my name is Inumala Kalavati. I'm the research scholar in Koneru Lakshmaya Education Foundation in Vadeshwaram. And presently I'm working in Andhra Layala Engineering and Technology, Assistant Professor, Department of English. And my topic is today class, race, and gender inequalities as represented in the select novels of Alice Walker and Shange. So I have selected these 2 writers, and whatever these 2 writers in the select novels, the themes are class, race, and gender inequalities. And coming to my abstract, this study highlights the plight of Afro-American women. They search for potential convergence in the juxtaposed characters, emancipated portrayals, injustices, violence, and inequalities brought on by European colonization. So mainly the authors highlight some of the most important and urgent issues of the post-colonial era, such as oppression, rape, racism, and male violence against Black women through a blend of fiction and facts. So coming to my full-length paper, I have taken Shange as well as Alice Walker in the select novels like Color Purple and Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo. These are the novels I have selected, and based on these novels, I have carried out class, race, and gender inequalities. And prominent works are available on the topic of these, but the flight of Black women for agencies and self-expression is typically neglected, both in the creative and critical literature, as well in the socio-political life of the country. They inhabit as seen in the works of Rawat, that was published in 2011. So Alice Walker and Nojake Shange has been undertaken to give voice to the Black women who are typically silenced by those around them. So the chosen works offer the images of Black women characters in ways that appears to be at odds with one another, but the decision also entails a thorough examination of few commonalities. Okay, and the current study is based on a comparative perspective and the desire to look at the works of 2 authors with comparable backgrounds who created characters that are similar life circumstances but ended up in a different situations. So I addressed the topic by asking whether the allusions made in their creative works contribute to the same portrayal of Afro-American women or whether they differed in this regard. These 2 novels share a number of topics and levels of knowledge with many other Black American women writers' works, which mostly started to appear after the 1960s in the wake of the civil rights movement. And I have taken the Color Purple and Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo share themes like relationships, family, love, sisterhood, and traditions. However, the comparison I will draw between them will focus on how both the authors attempt to assert their cultural identities. That is, Black American culture by highlighting male violence, the experience of slavery, and the liberating power of artificial expression. So these 2 writers examine Black women's vulnerability, the challenges they encounter in a patriarchal society, and approach their victimization with the goal of exemplifying their liberalization. So I can say that slavery and majority of the themes of Alice Walker and Shange contains the theme of slavery. But here, particularly, we can see in the Color Purple novel, we can see the slavery in the character called Silly. And here, Silly talks about mainly how the main character in Alice Walker Color Purple is a prime example of a suffering Afro African woman. Her struggle serves to highlight the plight of black women in particular, despite the fact that her image serves to remind one of the oppression of women as a universal phenomenon, regardless of culture, caste, and creed. And coming to Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo, in this we can see the opening chapter of Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo devoted to Indigo. But you can feel her influence throughout the entire book. Okay, because Indigo is an incarnation of a slave ancestors and all the conditions they lived in, as is very, very clear in some of the paragraphs. And so silly, just now I talked about silly character in color purple and sassafras cypress indigo in character of indigo can be seen as one of the most important characters. And she no longer feels, here silly no longer feels she is a unique individual and she no longer owns anything. She has no longer feels like she belongs in this world. Why? Because Mr. Alfonso rapes her as he goes on continuously, can be seen under slavery, and she is unable to let it out to anybody because uh, his causer sexual encounter makes her think of the way slave masters felt like they owned other people's bodies. And to a considerable extent, both Alice Walker and Shange, they have depicted an ideal change of black women's life from darkness to light, pain to happiness. But idealism aside, one might question whether this actually occurs in the conditions of real life. So many women suffered physically and psychologically harm as a result of this. There is a paradox called chauvinist men did not respect vulnerable black women, stripped them of their most precious virtues. So with all this, we can see that uh, ca- lot of vulnerability, rape, racism, sexual harassment can all cease, and virginity, female purity, and dignity. These are the major prominent themes can be seen in both these novels. And both the authors are actively engaged in the struggle against racism, injustice, discrimination, and they hope to awaken oppressed people, particularly black women, to speak out wherever necessary. And coming to the conclusion, and what I have talked about till now, class, gender, race, and these elements come together to create a triangled shaped cage around the social realities of disadvantaged Afro American women. So the works being examined are accounts of women who are harmed by others who are nominally there to help them. And according to these two writers, black oppression in a patriarchal culture by exercising their agency, speaking out against injustice, and finding inner power. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank
giving
you,
this
ma'am.
opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. So it was really a nice and accurate presentation that you made. So I don't have any question about your presentation, but I want to know what prompted you to choose or what prompted you to compare these two novels.
Actually, my topic is ecofeminism, ma'am. So it talks about all the related themes regarding ecofeminism.
Mm.
And
Okay,
most
okay.
probably, ecofeminism talks about parallel link between nature as well as women. So in this, we
Mm.
can see both the women and nature, they were dominated, they were suppressed and oppressed by men. And
Okay, okay.
one of the most prominent is Alice Walker Color Purple. It was a Pulitzer winning award. And it took, with this novel, she became very, very famous. And that's why I have
Mm.
selected only these two.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. And Did the participants have any questions for ma'am? Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
so the next presenter is Merin.
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Kindly introduce yourself, introduce your title, and go on with your presentation.
I hope I'm audible and I'm visible.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible and you're visible.
Uh, okay. Yeah. A very warm good afternoon to one and all present here. My name is Merin, and I'm pursuing my PhD in English Literature from Karunya Institute of Technology and Sciences, Coimbatore. So I'm indeed glad that I got an opportunity to present my paper in such a wonderful conference hosted by the renowned institution. And I thank all the coordinators of this conference and also to the administration of Holy Cross College, Kanyakumari. So now coming on to my article, the title of the work which I've done is The Complexity of Human Life, Psychological Anatomization of the Character Amir from Hosseini's Kite Runner. So The Kite Runner, written by Khaled Hosseini, tells the extraordinary story of an unlikely friendship between a wealthy Afghan boy named Amir and another character called Hassan. So the novel is set in Kabul, Afghanistan, during the Soviet invasion in 1978, and depicts life in a nation that is in the process of being ravaged or being destroyed. So it is about the harshness of violence and rape, the power of education, the price of betrayal, and the struggle for redemption, and the power fathers have over their sons. Like all these things can be mentioned as the theme of the novel. So, The Kite Runner is a powerful novel that has become an instant classic, and it is an unforgettably inspiring story of family, love, salvation, and friendship, which is told against the devastating backdrop of the history of Afghanistan over the last 30 years, 31 years. So, the main character's psychological development is covered in great detail and in this article which I've written. And the complexity of human life is reflected in Amir's personality. From birth to adulthood, Amir has to deal with a variety of challenges in order to satisfy the hierarchy of needs. So, according to Maslow's hierarchy of human requirements or human needs, the types of needs that Amir has um, in the novel Kite Runner that can actually be divided into mainly five categories, which is physiological needs, safety needs, love and belongingness. Then there is esteem, and finally self-actualization. So it is on this basis that I have actually divided my article also. So now coming on to the first chapter, which is the satisfaction through the basic needs. Now, Amir, the young man in Kite Runner, he comes from a very prosperous family. Now, in Kabul, Afghanistan, his father runs a very successful, prosperous business. And since he's a wealthy man's kid, Amir is constantly surrounded by luxury. So he also receives what he desires. Whatever he wants, he gets it in his table, in his hands. And as a result, the main character's ability to satisfy his physiological demand or need is not particularly a problem. So it follows that the main character, that is Amir, can readily satisfy his physiological needs, and it is evident from the manner in which Amir actually satisfies his physiological requirements, which mainly includes those of obviously oxygen and food and water and somewhat stable body temperature, because there are many people who even doesn't get these things nowadays. So in the book, the protagonist always takes opulent cuisine, or maybe to state that to quench his thirst or whatever it is, he's having a beautiful cuisine, a wonderful cuisine. He always has enough food, actually more than enough food. So in the book, the protagonist or what to say, like, I mean, uh, like due to like his financial situation, he's free to select the food and beverages he wants to satisfy his hunger and thirst. So, because his father is a very prosperous businessman, he gets all the physiological needs that he requires in his daily life. And this demonstrates how sufficiently the main character can meet his physical necessities. Now, the next division that I brought up is the denial of safety and security needs. Now, safety needs such as security or stability or reliance, protection, freedom from fear, or maybe liberation from anxiety increase when the physiological demands are actually met. Let's just say an example. Because of the violence at home, a baby's safety needs include wailing or shouting or crying out of fear. So, Amir needs protection from any fear or guilt or worry in the meantime. Because his neighbors frequently ridicule him, Amir is actually terrified of them. So additionally, whenever Amir plays with Asif, Asif is again another character in the novel. Actually, he can be what we can say that he's a negative character or something like that. So, like whenever Amir plays with Asif or passes him when they are playing in the street, Asif frightens Amir. When Amir witnesses Asif and his friends raping Hassan, Hassan is actually Amir's brother. And when Amir sees that this Asif rapes Hassan, his terror actually grows. He feels very awful for Hassan because he always treats him horribly, including beating him in the head and asking him to tell Baba and Ali lies when Amir makes mistakes. So Amir was like from all these incidents, what we clearly understand is that Amir was actually denied of safety needs. He was not a person who got safety needs either from his family or from his surrounding or from his neighbors or from his friends. So now the next division which I made in my article is the need for love and sense of belongingness. Now, when the demand of love, affection, and belongingness develop after the physiological and safety needs have been well met, the previously outlined cycle will once again begin with this new center. So, a person will now feel the absence of friends, or maybe a sweetheart, or a wife, or children, as never before. So, humans will go for affectionate relationship with other people in general, like specifically for a place in his or her group or family, and they will work very hard to fulfill that desire. So humans will want to get there more than anything else in the world. And even when they forget this, when they are in need of love and dismiss it as irrelevant or unneeded or maybe imaginary or something like that. So now he or she will notice with great clarity that there is no longer any isolation or rejection or friendlessness or rootlessness. Like all people, Amir also wished to be secure and firmly rooted in this, what you say, usually entails having high opinions of himself. And the primary character, that is Amir, will feel weak and incompetent and defenseless if it is not actually realized. Now, the last chapter or the concluding chapter, which is self actualization. So, even if all these needs are actually met, and it is possible to frequently, though not always, anticipate that new level of unhappiness and restlessness will soon appear unless the person is engaging in activities for uh, which they are maybe uniquely suited or something like that. Now let's just take our day-to-day situation. We get stressed out more often with our research work or daily job or say anything. So, what is it that we do to be at peace or to be in calm or to calm our minds? Like, we do things like we do different things. We do things such as listening to music or doing some kind of artwork, maybe painting or like what it depends, it varies from person to person. So, a man must be what he or she can be. That should be the ultimate goal of every human being, and he or she must be genuine to their own selves, and this can be referred to as self actualization, so specifically the ability for him to realize his full potential. And Amir's character finds it difficult of becoming a rich man's son and having his baba not care for him, and that was really challenging for him. and he completes the process successfully and fulfills his father expectation. And towards the end of the novel, Amir really achieves his self-actualization. He always wanted his father's best child or favorite child, but unfortunately, he was unable to get that. And step by step, and finally he makes sure that he gets that self actualization, and he makes sure that he becomes the favorite child of his father. So that's how the story actually ends, Amir actually attaining his self actualization. So yeah, this is what my article is all about. I have analyzed the character Amir by adding on the theory of hierarchy of needs by Abraham Maslow, and bringing in how Amir gained his self actualization through all these struggles. Thank you all for your patient listening. Have a wonderful day.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So, participants, do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay. So, let me come back to your presentation, ma'am. So, it's really a good presentation, and I'm so much familiar with Khalid Hosseini. And I'm really happy to hear something earlier, something regarding my favorite writer. And the thing is, you have analyzed Amir regarding all the other facts, but you have left only one thing, that is the influence of the patriarchal society. So Amir, he behaved like a dominant man to Hazan because of the disparity between the Hazras and the Pashtuns. So that's the only thing you left in your article. If you included it, it would have been.
Yeah, now
Yeah,
the
am I
thing is,
audible?
yes,
Hmm.
yes. The thing is, um, I analyzed Amir's character based on a theory,
Hmm.
Abraham Maslow's theory. The theory
Hmm.
contains only of five aspects, five main aspects, and it is according to that
Hmm.
theory I analyzed. If we are bringing in
Hmm.
many concepts can be brought in when analyzing Amir, actually, like too
Hmm.
many concepts are there. I know that, but only on
Hmm.
the basis of this theory I'm bringing in, it just gets shortened up to this five main aspects, all the five basic things: physiological needs, love
Hmm.
and esteem, and all those things. So that's why I just analyze the five aspects of Amir.
This is my observation,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I really appreciate you for giving many relevant examples. So we
Thank
can
you.
really go back. We can really travel to kite trainer as well as we can jump into this particular world. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. Okay. And the next one is Sri G. Rajakumar, sir. Sir, introduce yourself, your title, and then go on with your presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Anusha, ma'am, and the organizers also for conducting this international conference. My name is Rajkumar, ma'am. I'm a research scholar in the Vikramasumpuri University, Nellore. I'm working for my PhD. My area of research is Rabindranath Tagore, ma'am. And my topic of presentation is Rabindranath Tagore and Culture of Humans. And the journey in this article would be from local culture to the culture of the universe. So I read out the article I have prepared. To begin with, the general meaning of culture is a reformation or reclamation for better result. Culturing the land is known as agriculture for better produce. Similarly, culturing the silkworms for making silk fabrics is known as sericulture. On the same lines, culturing the human minds for better conduct and a progressive character and behavior is human culture. Such cultures that survive the test of the time tend to create civilizations. Civilizations create nations. According to Tagore, nations have artificial boundaries separating humans from forming into a universal family. In such context, Rabindranath Tagore raises his voice against modern nationalism. For him, nationalism is, I quote, the naked passion of a self love of nations, in its drunken delirium of greed, is dancing to the clash of steel and the howling verses of vengeance. I unquote. Tagore stands for the culture of universe that combines the peoples of the world into one family and the need for humans to get integrated with nature, and universal force. As said earlier, Tagore stands for culture of the universe. In his writings, he predominantly deals with the elements of nature, human mind, the creation, and the universe. And he seeks to unify human mind with the nature and the universal force. In his view, human mind is the birthplace of all cultures. To understand the magnificent structure and infinite power of the human mind, the book entitled 51 must know facts about brain says, I quote, there are about 100 billion tiny cells in our brain called neurons. There are so many that it would take over 3,000 years to count them all. And the brain is the most complex structure in the known universe. I unquote. Such a brain's first activity is creating thought waves. These thought waves entail action or reaction by any human. Thus, it can be summarized that mind thoughts manifest into words, words into actions, actions into habits, habits into practices, practices into traditions, customs, and conventions, and these traditions, customs, and conventions into cultures. With this, it becomes clear that the epicenter of human culture is the thought of the human mind. Hence, Rabindranath Tagore makes an appeal to humans to culture their minds in such a way that life becomes one with the laws of the nature and the laws of the universe. Based on time, evolution, and on the ability and scope of understanding and responding to natural phenomena, humans are categorized into five categories for easy understanding of various cultures. They are primitive human, early human, modern human, scientific human, and enlightened or spiritual human. The first three categories of humans had created most of the 50 plus cultures mentioned in the brochure of this conference. Limited knowledge on the part of the primitive man, the early man, and the modern man also has created the cultures in the conference brochure. Most of these cultures are confined to the people who created it. These limited cultures create cultural zones or regions. They become cohesive societies with common practices, traditions, customs, beliefs, even with their own deities and festivals. Such cultures with the common features get transformed into civilizations, civilizations into nations. The impact area of such cultures is limited to the nation or region only. Of course, for example, Arabic culture is dominant in Arabic nations only. Tribal culture is confined to forest areas, but not found in the plains. Similarly, campus culture cannot be practiced in temple cultures. But sometimes a culture with a philanthropic precepts and benevolent principles can spread beyond artificial boundaries of the nations and survive and grow. For example, Buddhism was born in India, created a specific culture in India, but became pan Indian and pan Asian culture also. In addition to the 50 plus cultures mentioned in the conference brochure, as the thrust areas, three more cultures can be added to the list. They are science culture, spiritual culture, and culture of the universe. A hypothetical creative imagination would give concrete shape to these three cultures. A few names of scientists are mentioned here. They are Nicholas Copernicus, Galileo Galileo, Sir Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, Edwin Hubble, APJ Abdul Kalam, Charles Darwin, etc. List can be continued, but time constraint does not permit me to do so. So, had these scientists, along with many other scientists, lived exclusively in an island, they would have created science culture. The theme for their science culture would have been that science is just a window to understand the working mechanism of this universe To assume that the science as be all and end all is the highest foolishness and most short sightedness. Science is a continuous exploration of new areas to upgrade and update the existing knowledge of science. Then, similarly, there had there been another island exclusively meant for Swami Vivekananda, Adi Shankaracharya, Gautama Buddha, Raja Raman Mohan Rai, Mughal Emperor Akbar, Martin Luther King, Confucius of China, they would have created a spiritual culture. Here, one may get a doubt that the above luminaries belong to different faiths and religions. But in my view, the above luminaries are enlightened intellectuals. Further, it can be said that the average people practice religions and enlightened people search for truth. These enlightened luminaries would have certainly created a spiritual culture, keeping their minds open for acceptance of the truth. Now comes Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore used to go on world tour frequently. As part of his world tour, had he visited these two islands of scientists with the science culture and the island of enlightened personalities with the spiritual culture, he would have proposed for creating a universal culture by synthesizing both science as the infrastructure and spiritual enlightenment as the superstructure of the universal culture. In that universal culture, nature would be the teacher, and the mysteries of the universe would be the lessons to be learned by the humans of the world. In such a world nation, humans would be called unigens. Unigens stands for universal citizens, as it is on the lines of citizens and netizens. In the words of Rabindranath Tagore, I quote, the age has come when all artificial fences are being broken down. Only that will survive, which is basically consistent with the universal nation. I unquote. In the world nation, as proposed by Rabindranath Tagore, every action of every action of every human would be aimed at amelioration of world nation. Thus, Rabindranath Tagore stands for culture of the universe as Vasudhaika Kutumbam with Vasudhaika Samskriti. That's all. That's my presentation. And thank you for giving me this opportunity for presenting my paper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your neat presentation. And participants, do you have any questions? Okay. Okay. So, sir, in your presentation, you have mentioned about Stephen Hawking's, right? So, can you state his influence on the science culture?
Science is just a mechanism to understand the mysteries of the universe. Ma'am.
Hmm.
Because somebody says the creator of this universe is the mightiest engineer of all engineers,
Hmm.
and finding out the existence of that engineer shall be the motto of uh, any other human being. So that is science culture. Science is aimed at understanding the mysteries of the universe, but not for denying the existence of the supernatural force.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, the next presentation, Vignesh Kumar.
Yeah, Prasanna ma'am.
Sir, introduce yourself,
Yes, ma'am.
introduce your title,
Okay, ma'am.
and go on with your
Okay,
presentation.
ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vignesh Kumar. I'm the research scholar. I'm doing my research uh, in myth and mythopia. Now, my topic is an marginalization of the subaltern in Amish Tripathi, the immortal of Meluga. Yeah, Amish Tripathi is the most prolific writer of India. His rewritings suit the modern world and are more interesting and entertaining. In his Shiva trilogy, Sripadi reimagines the legends of Shiva, and the protagonist helps the Melihans. This paper is an attempt to highlight the culture and religious beliefs in which a few are marginalized. The search for the meaning of evils and the imagination of the subaltern that prevails is the land it represents, and Sripadi focuses on the meat narratives of gender caste, nationalities, religions, and race. The protagonist Shiva is the savior of the Vikarma and the deformed Nagas. He saves them from the chains of untouchability and eradicates the law of Vikarma.
Sir, are you there? Sir, are you there? Sir, your voice is not audible. Your voice is not audible. Okay. So the next technical session, it will begin shortly. So the participants for the next session, kindly stay in the meet.
Hello?
Vignesh? Sir?
Ma'am. Can you hear me,
Uh,
ma'am?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. You can go on with your presentation.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Sorry for that. I didn't listen whether the network is connected or not.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Continue, continue.
Okay. Okay. Forget the gravity of touching a Vikrama. The Nilakanda had just asked to be blessed by one. Shiva turned to Sri Parvati, engaged face. Next to him stood Sati. Her face, her eyes, her entire demeanor was expressionless. Untouchability had its root even thousands of years ago, and people like Shiva have vowed to eradicate the vice. The power structure or the hegemony suppress the subordinate masses. M.H. Abrams states a social class achieves a predominant influence on power, not by direct or overt means, but by succeeding in making its dialogical view. To purposes that the subordinate classes uncertainly accept and participate in their own operations. In order to wield certain ideological apertures like Vikrama laws was created. The person was made to believe that his sufferings were due to his sins committed in his previous birth. Such a feeling instill does not allow the protagonist against marginalization. They would hardly accept their fate and subjugation. The Vikrama people, in a way, follow self-dominance woman like Sadi in an embodied of woodland. Being a Vikrama woman is no way diminish her power and his strength. A savior is needed in this society to redeem the bonds of chain. The immortals of Milva, the Vikrama people are the victims of the hegemonic power structures. Amish tries to subvert the meta narratives and focus on the life of the marginalized people. He connects the past and the present and reprimands the society for wrong prediction and false accusations. He also offers plausible solution to the present modern world in building an egalitarian society. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you
Okay.
for your
Thank you.
presentation. And
Thank you, ma'am.
often in your presentation, you use the term hegemony, right? So, can you explain the
Yes,
term
ma'am.
hegemony?
I cannot able to hear you, ma'am.
So, can you explain the term hegemony?
I mean, it shows that about the
Hmm.
women who are they are about that untouchability in the olden days, and they also compare into the modern world also, ma'am.
So, hegemony, it's basically about domination of one over the other.
Wow.
Okay. Sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And the participants for the next technical session can stay here. The session will begin shortly. Good afternoon, participants. And we'll start the next technical session. And let me convey the rules for this particular session. Again, you have to stick to 10 minutes. Within 10 minutes, you have to complete your presentation. And then we'll go for the question answer session. Okay. So now I'll read the order of presentation. So the first presenter, Navina, and the second one, Abida, the third one, Bala Satya, and the final one, Shiba Kumari. So Navina, introduce yourself, your title, and proceed with your presentation.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good
Am
afternoon.
I audible?
Yeah, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Navina, research scholar from St. John's College, Palangotai. And title of my topic is Recreating Women in History, a study on Hindu Sundarations, the Feast of Roses. So the purpose of this study is to examine the protagonist Nurjahan as a representative. Actually, Hindu Sundaresan's work highlights the fight for the female liberation against the already framed patriarchal social trends. So she acknowledged the character Nurjahan as a courageous voice to assert the rights. So women play a crucial role in human civilization. No nation or community can advance without women who participate directly or indirectly in its overall development. In earlier times, women are not treated equally when compared to the men. The patriarchal society, customs, and most structured by the gender discriminators put the fact to not to keep the woman free. The expression of employment and educational options were given to the very less number of people after so many centuries. So later on, no, the feminist movements can challenge the absolute universality of patriarchal subjects on the foundation of history. Actually, history will be more pervasive, whole, and perfect when we give voice to acknowledge the earlier been repressed or neglected peoples. So the portrayal of historic figure Nurjahan is widely picturized in the novel The Feast of the Roses by Hindu Sundarations poses the same. So women have historically been viewed as the subject or being without considerable in the historical significance. And a powerful empress, Nurjahan, could ever suppress the daily affairs of the massive Mughal Empire. So Nurjahan even manufactured coins that include her own image. She even wanted to Jakara, which no female participants has went before. So this demonstrates the capacity and accountability of the woman, which display when leading the nation. So it not convertible to think about the woman who made many contribution to the advancement of the nation or the nation's rule. So in this, the Raisins uses Nurjahan as an example to demonstrate her point. And she also thinks that to fight getting a seat, Sundaresan takes pen as her weapon. So Nurjahan rises being in just a bride of Jahangir to immense rule of the Delhi is recounted. And she is made herself as a choice maker. She was fully aware of constraints that women faces in society today. She did not, however, have guts to cross and against such limitations. Male historians characterize women in history. The stereotypical position of women in Mughal dynasty was broken by Nurjahan. So Nurjahan is willing to challenge the restriction place of the woman who are from the hierarchical nature of Indian culture through the 15th, 16th century. So same attempt in the Sudarshan reinterpret the Nurjahan in the postmodernism in the history. Nurjahan removed herself from the restraint and claimed herself as a woman defender. So history, however, being a writer especially says about the King Jahangir, but no writers or no historians said about the Nur Jahan. So they some historians know after the postmodernism they started to say that without Nur Jahan, King Jahangir may lost the total empire because she's the one who developed the total Mughal dynasty in India. But however, being a woman, she was removed from the history. She showed a special concern for women issues that time by providing the properties, dowries, and for the girls, particularly girls. And there is a habit in Senas during that time. The Zena peoples are used for preparing food, clothes, cosmetics, this kind of things. But Nur Jahan encouraged the people in Zena to write poets and write poetry things, and she gifted them and funded them for writing poetries. So, being a female, she was regretted from the history. Postmodernism embraces the diversity. In literature, the theory of postmodernism essentially denies the text. Feminist historians have embraced the postmodernism and political possibility with most vigor. So instead of being a passive subject under Jahangir's control, Nur Jahan is shown to be a proactive and intelligent and a decision maker in the Mughal dynasty. Sundaresan disapproves the conventional techniques for doing and maintaining history, traditional historical perception, and description of females and men from different from women. In history, the role of gender has been subtle and tricky. Literature is a powerful tool for promoting social changes. All elements of social represent a hierarchical framework. Women themselves did not consider them very long time. History is not a static thing anymore. There may be a significant facts and relevance by new inquiries. One must address the historical injustice against the woman and other oppressed groups. So Nur Jahan is considered to be a negative character by many historians, but Hindu Sundarations try to give a clear plot about a woman who was the backbone for the Mughal dynasty to acquire a great change in the dynasty. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. Okay. So, do you have any questions, participants? Do you have any question for Navina, ma'am? Okay. So the only thing that I found in your presentation is pronounce the writer's name correctly, ma'am. So often you are
Okay,
mispronouncing the writer's name.
okay ma'am.
Just correct it in your future presentations. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the next presenter, Abida.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my
Ma'am,
topic of
ma'am,
this is, ma'am.
excuse, ma'am, in case if you have any PPT, you can share it.
No, ma'am, I didn't prepare any PPT.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, then read your presentation.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Topic of my paper is the drama of August Wilson in African American literature. Now, let me say some points about August Wilson. August Wilson was an outstanding dramatist of 1980s, and he turned a voice of African American theater because he was an unique dramaturgy. And once he started become voracious reader of books on African American life. By that, he presented some ideas related to the dramas and about the work and about the life of African peoples. Wilson has achieved an outstanding success as a playwright, and Wilson treated the harassment of African Americans in an artistic way rather than protest. So, one of the commonest forms of African traditional drama. While we get to know about Africa, we started to say about their culture and tradition related to their lifestyle. And in traditional dramas, is the comic sketch relying mostly upon action rather than words. They started to convey their points related to any satire or any historical moment. They started to produce some dramas like their rituals. They started to begin their rituals by dramas. Another name of this formation is the new Negro movement. The Black Theater in the United States dramatic movement encompasses plays written by and for African American peoples. The minstrel shows of the early 19th century are believed by some of the most and roots of black theater, but they initially were written by whites, acted by whites with black mask. It represented like a black men or women. The traditional mask patterns of Africans were taken by whites, not taken by, we can mention that they stolen from the African peoples by whites, and they wear black mask only to represent evil and disgusting behavior and happenings in the white theater. So white people started to think black people as a disgusting characters. They don't want to accompany with them. They don't want to encourage in every situations or any circumstance. They don't want. They think like that, and slowly started to change this. This white patterns was slowly started to change after American Civil War, and he is represented as August Wilson appreciated the culture of the people and recorded it in his plays. Wilson wrote many plays and received many awards related to the African peoples, and he started to write many plays, and the best plays are called 10 plays which were known as play cycle. In the sense we can get that Pittsburgh Hills where he situated and where he get the points about black peoples. Wilson was a key figure in order to establish multi-dimensional and multi-ethnic perspectives in the African American theatrical tradition, and he produced some history, memory, rituals, time and space where new experiments in the African American theaters, because those days we can't even see these memories of the peoples and rituals of the peoples again in another situation. So now August Wilson recreate all those process in his dramas, and the journey of his life was fully up and down moment because he was an victim in the cultural dilemma. So because of American Civil War, he was crossed two types of culture, like black people's culture and the black slavery people's culture, and this negative background reflected in his all plays, and he painted harsh reality in his works. Then this discourse of abolition of slavery and socio-economic and cultural empowerment of African Americans had most memorable histories. Most memorable histories is the point which mentioned the slavery and economic background of the black peoples. When the African Americans brought of the America, they brought their African heritage with themselves. And African tradition was primarily in oral forms. After the slaverism, they started their oral tradition into the written forms to show how their situation, how their tradition, how their culture, how their rituals, how they performed in their place as Africa. And Wilson's representation of relationship between the white and the black exhibited deep attitude of the white towards the black peoples, because the white started to neglect and white started to reject the peoples, and they started to ignore because only the color and only the race. And he also explored the problems of the black woman in the racist society, and Wilson started to practice and started to show about the African people's lifestyle, and he started to exhibit the dramatical category and dramatical style of the black peoples, and they ready to project about the ideas and project the sufferings, worries about black peoples, to show how others need to be ready and how they need to be protect from themselves. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. So it's a nice presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
And participants, do you have any question? Any question? Okay. So, ma'am, can you state the common thing in all the dramas of August Wilson?
Yes, ma'am. We can in all those plays we can see only culture, only history. History, culture, and race is the main point of August Wilson's plays because he belongs to African American men. So he project all those sufferings. We can see that only culture was not comes under sufferings because rituals, everything comes under sufferings only. By according to August Wilson, it wasn't suffering. So he project all those things in his place.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next presenter, Bala Satya. Bala Satya, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Good
Uh,
afternoon to everyone. I am Bala Satya, I, and I am a MPhil research scholar. And now I am going to present a paper on post-colonial perspectives in Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Thing and Babsi Sidhwa's Ice Candy Man. So Arundhati Roy and Babsi Sidhwa are rightly considered as prominent novelists in English literature. Both give their voice against the sufferings of people. Roy and Sidhwa's novel are post-colonial. So in The God of Small Things and in Ice Candy Man, both writers illustrates the miseries of people under the patriarchal and partition society. So this paper presents the post-colonial elements and how women suffer in the male-dominated society. Before we going into this topic, we just see about colonization. So what is colonization? So colonization is defined as the act of setting up a colony away from one's place of origin. So, the term colonization was first used to describe the Roman settlements in the 14th century. So, it had taken many different forms which created diverse effects around the world. So, colonization is only one form of practice which resulted from the ideology of imperialism. So, the imperial venture of the British Empire distinctly decolonized in three periods during the end of the 19th century to the first decade of the 20th century was considered as the creation of the domains. So the term domains was used to describe the nations of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. These people were called as settlers, and the settler of this nation formed self-government, which they asserted as domains of the British Empire. So the reason for decolonization was in many ways due to the growth of various nationalities movement in both the settler and the settled colonies. So after the decolonization period, Commonwealth literature came into existence. So Commonwealth literature was a term used by literary critics from the 1950s. It was used to describe literature in English emerging from countries with a history of colonization. So the change of colonial to commonwealth is like the changes of subvariance to equality for colonized countries. So after the commonwealth literature, it made a path of studying post-colonial in English. In the late 1970s and 1980s, many critics followed post-colonial literature in new ways. So the significance of the prefix word post in post-colonial is a matter of connotation. The word post-colonial means post or after the colonial period. Equality of race, irrespective of caste, creed and color, region and religion, had been the objective humanity for the post-colonial writer. It had been inspiring to achieve and thus make the concept of post-colonial literature as a worthy. Postcolonial literature often describes the problems and consequences of the decolonization of a country. It especially questions the political and cultural independence of formerly subjugated people. Post-colonial feminism is one of the important part in post-colonialism. This criticism is extensive and variable. It analyzes the representations of women in one's colonized country and in Western collaboration. Some critics wrote about the constructions of gender difference during the colonial period, while others wrote about the representation of women in post-colonial discourse. In this paper, it dealt with the post-colonial perspectives like patriarchal, caste, politics, partition, and victimhood through the works of Arundhati Roy and Babsi Sidhwa. In Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Thing, she takes three generations of women to prove her point of view as a patriarchal society. Arundhati Roy mainly focuses on socio-political life as well as the Christian attitudes and snobbishness. It also depicts the marginalized class which have been suppressed throughout the history. The colonial attitudes remain in the undercurrent of so-called upper classes and upper castes in India. So Ammu in this novel suffered under patriarchal and caste. Being a girl child, her parents did not permit her to study, but her brother Choco was allowed to study for the education. So throughout this novel, the character Amu was suffered under has suffered many sufferings. So, according to their family, women are symbols of the family's honor and pride and are supposed to live within the prescribed bonds. So, Ammu's brother Choco was a divorced man. He had broken the laws of patriarchy by marrying a foreign woman. But when he came back, he was accepted by the whole family. He became the master of the family. He openly flirts with female workers who work in his family pickle factory and had illicit relationship with them. But in the case of Ammu, however, their family reaction is entirely different. But Chakun Ammu worked in the factory, but Ammu was always made to feel that she did not belong to. Her twin sister life was unhappy, and she believed that her marriage life made her feel like heaven. But her married life gave her great disappointment. So throughout her life, she did not lead a happy life forever. In this novel, Arundhati Roy, the God of Small Thing, is God of Small Thing. Ammo depicts the concept of post-colonial sufferings, which was privileged in the society. Each character in the novel exposed each issue that happened in the society. The character Mamaji was a silent sufferer in the hands of male domination, which exposed the silent sufferings of the downtrodden people. Baby Kochama accepted the facts which are put forth by the society. Ammu and is an example of people's loneliness and sadness which are given by the higher authority. Thus, the poor God of small things possesses the quality of post-colonial perspective such as sufferings of women, caste, politics, culture, society, and so on. So, like Arundhati Roy, Babsi Sidhwa's Ice Candy Man also dealt with partition and politics that prevalent in the Indian subcontinent. So, people of India and Pakistan suffered a lot during partition, and many people became refugees, losing fortunes and homes, coming to hunger and diseases. Countless women were raped, and they were rejected by their husbands and families. So, Sidhwa's fiction deals with both pre and post colonial period of the Indian subcontinent. Her fiction not only brings the light to horror of the partition but also vividly portrays the complexities of life in the subcontinent after independence. Sidhwa also represents the historical violence and politics of partition from the view of young narrator Leni. Each incident in the novel is told by Leni. She was unable to walk because she was affected by polio. Polio. During partition, Leni and her caretaker Aya Shanti were suffered under the partition and double colonized terms. So, through the character of Leni and Aya Shanti, Aya Sidba brings out tragic days of partition. She also gives visibility to the hidden tragedy of thousands of women whose body and soul were shamed by their families, by their own families, own communities, and own nations. Sidba beautifully visualize the partition and how politics played in the life of people and their community. Thus, both Arindam Roy's The God of Small Thing and Babsi Sidhwa's Ice Candy Man are autobiography and a post-colonial which expresses the pain and suffering that are faced by women in their society. In Roy's The God of Small Thing, the character Ammu suffered a lot under the name of caste, and Aya in Sidhwa's Ice Candy Man suffered under the name of community. Both novels revolve around the women characters and they have child narrators too. The character Ammu represents Roy's mother and the child narrator Rahel represents herself. Like that Lenny represents Babsy who was affected by polio in her childhood and so her parents appointed a caretaker for her which resembles Aya in the novel. Thus, this paper provides about the post-colonial and the important theorists who occupied the prominent place in post-colonialism. With the help of post-colonial literature, the paper analyzes patriarchal caste and politics in Rise the God of Small Things and partition and politics in Sidwas Ice Candyman. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. And it's a nice presentation and a good
Thank you,
comparison
ma'am.
between both the works. And participants, do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay. So, ma'am, as you have narrated the numerous incidents in both the novels, have the victims got justice in both the novels? Or
No,
have
ma'am.
they ensured?
The
Yes, ma'am.
victims was not justified in the throughout this novel. Only the women, only and the victimized people are suffered in this in both novels, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, the next presenter, Shiba Kumari.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay,
Uh,
ma'am. Ma'am, do you have any PPT?
no, ma'am, I don't have any PPT. Shall I start my presentation, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Introduce yourself, introduce
Uh,
your title, and go on with your presentation.
okay, sure, ma'am.
Ah,
I'm S. Shiva Kumari. I'm research scholar of Chikaya Nayaka College. So great afternoon to one and all present here. My presentation topic is Sociology Culture in Mahesh Dattani's Do the Needful. This paper explores the sociology culture in the play Do the Needful. It has portrayed the traditional customs prevalent in the society. It was his first radio play. Indian parents are so devoted to their children, so the compulsion related to their marriage life is like a do the needful for them. They like to see their life settle down in their own way and refuses to accept the children's choices. The parents of Alpesh, a divorcee, and he's desperate for his marriage at the cost of compromising with their cultural norms with a girl belonging to another caste, that is Canadias, against his will because they want him to settle down in life on grounds of his marital life. Similar situation is set for the character Lada of the play, who is also forced into the marriage at the age of 24 to confirm the social norms against her desire. So, arranged marriages have been successful in Indian society for centuries. Dattani is an outstanding artist. The way he brings two families with different cultural backgrounds together and creates the situation of intercaste marriage is very stimulating for the audience. Alpesh's father and Ba have just one concern in their life, that is the second marriage of Alpesh. Alpesh is a homosexual and he is in relation with Trilok. Alpesh's first marriage fails due to his homosexual attraction with Trilok. In Indian society, homosexuals are not accepted with dignity. This fear stops Alpesh from announcing his homosexual relationship with Trilok. The Kannadigas and Gujaratis have great contrasts in their lifestyles and cultural orientation, but keeping in mind the prosperity of their children, they overlook all those contradictions. Generation gap and the combat between opposing views of life can be noticed in the play. So, music of M.S. Subbulakshmi and Subramaniam and music of all the albums could have heard in just one play, which shows the diverse taste of choice of music as well as. Dattani's choice of words from different languages is used to convey the difference in culture among the various states of India. The Patels find themselves at a loss when confronted with the words of different language spoken by the coconut seller. Coconut seller states Those son of demons who asked them to come here, go away, we don't want your money. Go, I am a son of the soil, this is my land. And you, we have served for so long. You have given your daughter to them. Ayo, big people, modern people. Kali Yuga, Kali Yuga. Our mother is being raped and her own sons are watching. So the abusive words spoken by coconut seller, not understood by Patel family, but it would have created a lot of ill will. If Alpesh and Leda are of two different cultural backgrounds, how are they expected to live a lifetime together as their parents have planned? Parents live in a fantasy world. They think only of their future. They are taking decision. But dignity in the society over the life is hidden. Lada is in love with a Salim, a boy, Muslim boy. Parents are disturbed with their relationship and tortures them to choose a life which they set up. The play depicts about certain customs and ceremonies to be undertaken at the time of starting something auspicious, that is donating money to others, especially poor people and pujari, priest, etc. For seeking blessings upon the task is highlighted in the play. Tatani brings out the dowry system prevalent in India. The modern society in India too longs for dowry. In this play, when they start speaking of marriage, Kusumban Patel reminds of dowry. She's overexcited in the marriage and its dowry. She's so conscious to know of bride's background. Though her son is not interested, she is so eager in this marriage. Will they give this Vidana Sabha as dowry? So the play highlights wrath and anger of the people against the industrialists for the excessive consumption of water and electricity polluting environment. The play also focuses on sandalwood smuggling going on in our country. Lada is bold enough to reveal the truth about her love. She told Alpesh if we get married, then she will give her a life of hell. Now Alpesh and Lada come to a conclusion. Think about it. If we do the needful, yes, they decide to accept the marriage and do their needful in silence. The decision taken by them is an immorality and obscene, but their parents force them to do this immoral behavior. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. That is a neat presentation. And I don't have any questions for you, but one suggestion, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So rather than focusing more on the storyline, we can also analyze in the outset of the novel, right, ma'am? That's the only suggestion.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, sure, ma'am. I will do it, ma'am.
So participants, the next session, it will start by 4 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you for your participation and patience.